So humans are poor predictors of the future. And we are disingenuous interpreters of the past. An inscription from my high school journal, this is April the 13th, 1996, reads, "The University of Texas, student body president, Harvard Law School, practice in Houston for 5 years, practice in Mount Pleasant for 3 years, state senate, governor's mansion." Okay. And this all stemmed from one of the most dangerous questions we ask children, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? What do you want to be when you grow up? And so this is the question that my father asked. He's a Baptist minister, 43 years, preaching at the Mount Olive Baptist Church in Mount Pleasant, Texas. I'm a fifth generation East Texan. So he asked me this question, and we had just traveled to Austin 2 weeks before he posed this to me. And I remember standing in the Capitol, right? And in the rotunda and looking up at all of the portraits of the governors and thinking to myself, this sounds like a sexy title. So I told him I want to be governor of Texas. He said, okay. By what age? I'm like, oh my gosh. Even before there were SMART goals, my dad believed in SMART goals, all right? So I picked a number that I thought was far enough into the distance that it would give me some time. I said, by age 40. Okay, I turned 44 in November. So obviously I took a wrong turn somewhere. Or if you ask my wife, I took a right turn. But that was the plan. So I get to the University of Texas. I'm student body president. I'm checking off the boxes. I apply to Harvard Law School. I don't get accepted. I don't get rejected. What's in the middle? The dreaded wait list, right? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so let me paraphrase the letter for you. Dear Darren, we like you. Unfortunately, Darren, there are so many more humans that we like more than you. Now, Darren, in the highly unlikely event that we reach back out to you, we hope that you will say yes. But Darren, if you have any viable options for law school, we highly advise you to take advantage of them. With love, Joyce P. Curl, Dean of Admissions. Look, I'm distraught, all right? I'm walking across the 40 acres in sackcloth and ashes. The plans have been derailed, right? And this is how life works, right? We plan in linear terms, and then we look back and realize that life by design is nonlinear. My mentor, a man named Lowell Leberman, calls me up and he says, I've got a job for you. You're working in D.C. This is on a Thursday. I said, yes, sir. You're working for Joe Lieberman. I said, okay. So this is 1997. I go to the interwebs. Flights were like $43,000, right? I called him back. I said, Lowell, I can't afford a flight to D.C. He said, well, son, have you ever ridden a bus? So I jump on a Greyhound bus. I get to Union Station on a Sunday. And I don't want to be there, but it's June '01. I'm working on education bills. September 11th comes. So September 11th, I'm working on education bills. September the 12th, I'm working on national security bills. And I'm in a place where I don't want to be, right? I'm sure that many of you, if you surveyed your professional past, there were a lot of cul-de-sacs sprinkled throughout your resume, and you landed in places where you thought you shouldn't be or where you didn't want to be. But I got a front row seat to government and leadership at the most tumultuous time in the past 2 decades. I'm reapplying to Harvard Law School. Wait list number 2, wait list number 3. I go to the Kennedy School, wait list number 4. Finally, the 5th attempt, I get in, I'm like, all right, we're back on track. 2006 rolls around, I am a rising 3L, so it's my last summer, and a high school buddy calls me up, and he says, hey, Darren, he and I played football together at Mount Pleasant High School. He was good, I was average, and he said, look, I have to work this football camp. He was a coach at Pflugerville Conley. I've got to go to the South Carolina Steve Spurrier football camp. Let's just take a road trip. Man, I haven't seen you in a while. I said, you know what? I'd been clerking at a couple of law firms, and this sounded like a great vacation. All right? So yeah, let's go. So we jump in the car, and we get to Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm sitting in a room just like this, right? Steve Spurrier walks out the night before the camp, and he says, all right, guys, listen up. One of our coaches canceled, didn't show up. Can anyone fill in for him? Right. So I'm sitting on the back row, and I'm fiddling with my BlackBerry. You know, it's 2006. And so I'm sitting there. I said, I was a first-team all-district strong safety. Right. Friday Night Lights, state of Texas. So I raised my hand. Meanwhile, my buddy is elbowing me in the rib cage. He's like, do not get us kicked out of this camp. I said, it's okay. Coach, what's your name? Coach Roberts. All right, Coach Roberts, where do you coach? Whew. Plot thickens. Plot thickens. This is where we start lying. I said, Mount Pleasant High School, Coach. I said, Mount Pleasant High School. Excellent, excellent. You have group 6. Yes, sir. Got it. I had no clue what this man was talking about. Group 6 consisted of 60 sixth graders, none of whom had any athletic talent whatsoever. Now listen, this is the world of college camp. Some of you have kids, nieces, and nephews. Just let me give you sort of a quick primer here. If at any point you pay for one of your loved ones to attend a college camp, I hate to break it to you, but there's a 98.6% chance that that kid is not being recruited by that university, right? You know, the 4 stars, the 5 stars, they find some way to get into the camp for free. All 60 of my kids had receipts for the camp, all right? So they couldn't play football, and hell, I couldn't coach. So the night before, I go to Academy, I buy a bucket hat, I get some sunglasses, I've got a stopwatch and a whistle. I'm watching YouTube videos of Tony Dungy and Deion Sanders and Mike Tomlin, and I'm writing down notes, okay? And I get up the next morning, I'm fired up. I've got my cones ready, I've got my whistle. You know, at some point, I want to find those 60 humans, sort of like a where are they now? I'm convinced that up until that camp, they were headed on this arc of success. And then they landed in group 6 with faux Coach Roberts. Here's one thing I realized. 3 days of that camp, it was the first time in my life that I did not have to set my alarm clock to get up. For those of you keeping notes in your head or Apple Notes, wherever you register these things, notice what lights you up. Notice what lights you up. That question that I mentioned at the beginning, what do you want to be when you grow up? We should rephrase that for who do you want to be when you grow up? Because when we use the word what, it elicits a terminal response, right? So now, and my wife and I have 5 kids from ages 5 to 12. So say your prayers or your rosaries or whatever you do. From 5 to 12. And so we began our parenting excursion with these young people, asking them this question. And immediately I would see them starting to sort of gauge, you know, what would sound good for dad? Right? What would sound good to mom? But when you start asking, who do you want to be? It forces you to think about the qualities. David Brooks talks about the eulogy traits versus the résumé traits. Like, what are the things you want to be remembered for? Forget about the titles and the promotions. I think 2020 really taught a lot of us what the true value of those things are in our lives. But who do you want to be? I get back to Harvard Law School, fly into Logan Airport. I walk up to a payphone. So for those of you who don't know, a payphone was this machine, and you took a quarter, you put it in, and dial some numbers. Mom answers, "Hey, son, how was the camp?" I said, "It was unbelievable. I want to be a football coach." Silence. "Honey, let me put your dad on the phone. Kurt, could you come here for a second?" "Son, how did it go?" I said, "Dad," I said, "listen, I ended up coaching." He goes, "You were doing what? You were just supposed to ride with Alfonso." I said, "Yeah, but someone didn't show up, and I just jumped in." He goes, "You don't know how to coach?" I said, "I know. That's the best part." I said, "Dad, I got to be a coach." He said, "Okay, calm down. I have one question for you. Do you know how much debt you're in?" Right? What do parents care about? Debt. I said, "Yes." I said, Bank of America does a really great job of reminding me that 6 months from the date that I graduate from law school, they will hunt me down across the entire earth and force me to start paying back these loans. And my dad said, "Look, now, hey, this is not our obligation. So we made a deal with you in high school. We would pay for undergrad, but you're on the hook for grad and law school." And I said, "Dad, I've been thinking about that." I was fortunate to get a full academic ride to UT. So by my very crude accounting, it appears that you and Mom owe me around $69,427.92 without interest. All right. So what does a Baptist minister do in a moment like this? "Well, son, let's pray." So he prays me. I have yet to see the check. All right? I have yet to see the check, but we had a 20-minute prayer. I wrote a letter to every NFL team asking for an internship. Does anyone know how many teams there are? How many NFL teams are there? 32. I get 31 no's. All right? Bill Belichick, no. Tony Dungy, no. Wade Phillips, no. I get one yes from a man named Herm Edwards. He calls me up. It's April the 3rd. It's 2007. The first question out of his mouth is, "Hey, son, what's wrong with you?" I say, "Excuse me, coach?" I said, "Look, I don't read my own mail, but my assistant, Catherine, put your letter on my desk with a sticky that reads, 'Not sure if something's wrong with him, but you should give him a call, Herm.'" Catherine gets the largest bouquet of flowers that 1-800-Flowers offers every year on her birthday from me because of that sticky. He says, "Look, I'm here to talk you out of coaching." He goes, "Man, just go practice law." And I said, "Coach, I work this." He goes, "I read the letter. I know about the damn camp." All right? He said, "You do not want this life." I said, "Coach, I want to be a coach." He's all right. "Take out a pen and paper. I got an offer for you." So I scramble for my Pilot V5 Precise pen, and I get it out, and I'm ready to go. He goes, "All right, you're going to be a training camp intern. No pay. No benefits. 18-hour days. So I glance at this list, and I'm thinking to myself, this sounds like an employment lawsuit waiting to happen. I only took one semester of it, but no pay, no benefits, 18-hour days. This was in my head. I didn't say this out loud. I said, "Coach, I'm in." All right? He said, "All right, when you graduate, as soon as you can." He goes, "Like the next day, make your way to Kansas City, Missouri." So I graduate June the 6th, 2007, walk across the stage like this, take my diploma from Elena Kagan, who was the dean at the time, exit stage, party with my parents that night. The next day, I get up in my 2002 Tahoe. I head from Cambridge, Massachusetts to Kansas City, Missouri. I get there, and I'm the grunt, all right? If the offensive linemen need barbecue sandwiches, I'm the guy. If the defensive linemen needed Skol, and I can tell this is a very refined crowd, so let me translate for you. This is chewing tobacco. I would go to every Exxon, Chevron, Texaco, you name it. And I would purchase as much wintergreen Skol as a U.S. citizen can legally buy in a 24-hour time span. I slept at Arrowhead for 6 months. I volunteered. At the end of the year, we went 4-12. And there's this thing called Black Monday, which was actually just this past Monday. And this is not to be confused with Black Friday, all right, where you can get great deals on Amazon. Black Monday is when coaches get fired. And so I watched 4 coaches walk into Coach Edwards' office. They walk out with 2 things: a security guard and a dolly. They have 45 minutes to clear their belongings out of their offices and exit Arrowhead Stadium. So Catherine walks to my office. It's a converted closet. We've torn the door off the hinges. And she knocks. She says, "May I come in?" I said, "Catherine, I don't have a door." Of course. She walks in. She says, "Coach Edwards would like to see you." I said, "Oh." I said, "Am I getting fired?" She says, "I don't know." So I'm walking to his office, and I'm thinking to myself, technically I can't get fired. Right? I haven't signed a single piece of paperwork in my 7-month time in Kansas City. I mean, it's like a black ops mission. If you were to Google Darren Roberts, Kansas City Chiefs, 2007, nothing would come up. In the team picture, 3rd row, second from the left, you see a black dot. That's me. I had to sneak into the team picture right before they said go. And so I sit down and I said, "Coach," Catherine said, "You'd like to meet?" I said, "Yeah, sit down." He said, "Darren, listen. First thing I want to tell you is I really appreciate all of your contributions." I said, "Oh, God, don't say that." Right? I'd taken enough business school classes to know that there's something called the termination sandwich. Okay. All right, the research says begin with a compliment, let them go, send them on their way with a compliment. I said, "Oh, God, I'm getting served a termination sandwich." He says, "Look, I don't know why I'm doing this." He slides this 18-page packet across the desk. He says, "That's your first NFL coaching contract." So what do you do in a moment like this? I whip out my Pilot V5 Precise pen, turn to page 18, sign it, hand it back to him. He said, "Oh, do they still teach contract law in law school?" I said, "Coach, listen, if there's one thing I know, it's when I have absolutely no leverage. There isn't a clause in this 18-page document that I'm in any position to negotiate. Let's just go." So I coached for 2 years in Kansas City, 2 years in Detroit with the Lions, 2 years in West Virginia with the Mountaineers. Last year with America's team, did we have any fans here? You just don't want to admit it in public? That's fair. The Cleveland Browns. We went 4-12. The owner, Jimmy Haslam, walks in and he says, the next day, "Guys, I appreciate all of your contributions. I'm firing all the coaches today." Meeting started at 8 o'clock, ended at 8:01. And so I go home and I'm scrambling eggs and I'm thinking about the next spot, and my son walks over. He was 4 at the time, and he said, "You eat breakfast?" So I did what any good father would do in a moment like this. I just kept scrambling and ignored the kid, right? Persistent fellow walks over. He says, "You eat breakfast?" So I turned to my wife. I said, "Look, you convinced me to put him into this private school, and I'm a public school kid. I don't know what's wrong with him, but I need a refund." I said, "What is he talking about? Do I eat breakfast?" And my wife grew up on a ranch in Kansas, Leavenworth, Kansas, never one to pull punches. She says, "Well, when was the last time that you had breakfast with Dylan?" When was the last time you had breakfast with Dylan? And as I surveyed my brain for the memories of the last 4 years, I could not locate any meal, let alone breakfast. So this is what I want to say. Look, all of you are doing incredible work. And as you look at today's roster, you think about the topics that you're going to delve into. These are weighty issues, to say the least. Inclusion and diversity and climate and sustainability and impact. What I hope you'll think about after you leave here is just one question, right? Who are you without the ball? So this is something that Herm Edwards would pose this question every single week to the entire team. It's like, look, we've got coaches and we've got players and we've got doctors, and so much of what you do is tied to what we do on Sundays. But who are you without the ball? Because when I think about 2020 and the time that, the universe forced us to get still. So many of us, for years, 2019, 2018, we had all of these resolutions about being more present. And 2020 comes along and says, screw your resolutions, we're doing this. And there were some promises, some personal promises that we made to ourselves that it didn't take long for us to break once it looked like normalcy had returned. So I want you to think about who you are without the ball and the people around you. How much do they see you? When was the last time that you called your grandparents? These are the questions that don't show up in a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint, but this is what moves the needle. And at the end of the day, stay in the deep end. Thank you.